You know what makes me absolutely sick? The fact that for months, we've been sitting here like complete idiots, watching CM Punk get jumped, attacked, blindsided, and absolutely demolished by some coward in a mask, and WWE had the audacity to drag this story out like we're supposed to just keep our mouths shut and accept it. But last night on Monday Night Raw, everything changed. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you think you know what happened, if you think you've seen the clips on social media, if you think you understand the magnitude of what went down, you're dead wrong. Because what transpired in that ring wasn't just a revelation, it wasn't just a moment, it was the single most explosive culmination of months of storytelling that set every single one of us pulling our hair out, screaming at our screens, and wondering if WWE was ever going to give us the payoff we deserved. Let me paint you a picture of the absolute chaos that unfolded. Picture this. The arena is packed. The energy is electric. CM Punk's music hits, and the place erupts like a volcano. The man walks down that ramp with a purpose we haven't seen in years. His eyes are filled with rage, with determination, with that fire that made him the voice of the voiceless in the first place. He gets in that ring, grabs a microphone, and he doesn't waste a single second with pleasantries or corporate speak. He looks directly into the camera and says what we've all been thinking. He's done waiting. He's done being patient. He's done playing WWE's games. Tonight, the mystery attacker is going to reveal themselves, or he's going to tear that building apart brick by brick until he finds them. Now, let's rewind for a second, because if you haven't been following this storyline, you need to understand the depth of psychological warfare that's been waged against CM Punk. This isn't just about a few attacks. This isn't just about getting jumped backstage. This has been a systematic campaign of terror designed to break one of the toughest competitors to ever step foot in a wrestling ring. It started back in September when Punk was celebrating a victory, standing in the ring, soaking in the adulation of the crowd, when suddenly the lights went out. Complete darkness. And when they came back on, Punk was laid out cold. No sign of the attacker. No evidence. Nothing. Just CM Punk unconscious and the entire WWE universe left wondering what the hell just happened. But it didn't stop there. Oh no, it got worse. Week after week, the attacks continued. Punk would be walking through the parking lot and boom, attacked from behind. He'd be doing an interview backstage, and suddenly he's getting thrown through a table. The attacker wore all black, had their face covered, and moved like a ghost through that arena. Security footage was always conveniently corrupted, or the cameras would mysteriously malfunction right at the crucial moment. WWE's crack investigative team, and I use the term loosely, couldn't find a single clue. Adam Pearce claimed he was doing everything in his power to identify the culprit, but week after week, we got nothing. Just more attacks, more chaos, more frustration. And here's what really made this situation infuriating. The attacker wasn't just physically assaulting Punk. They were playing mind games. They left cryptic messages in his locker room. They would appear in the crowd wearing the same mask, taunting him, knowing he couldn't get to them. One week, they spray-painted a message on Punk's car that said, "You'll never see me coming." Another week, they somehow got into his hotel room and left photos of themselves standing over Punk while he was unconscious from previous attacks. This was personal. This was deep. This was someone who didn't just want to hurt CM Punk physically, they wanted to destroy him mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The speculation ran absolutely rampant. Social media was on fire every single week with theories. Was it someone from Punk's past in AEW coming to settle a score? Was it a disgruntled WWE superstar who felt Punk took their spot when he returned? Some people thought it was MJF finally making his way to WWE to continue their rivalry. Others swore it had to be someone within the bloodline seeking revenge for Punk's interactions with Roman Reigns. The conspiracy theories got wild. Some fans were convinced it was Vince McMahon in disguise getting revenge for Punk's infamous pipe bomb promo. Every week brought new speculation, new theories, and WWE did absolutely nothing to give us answers. CM Punk himself became increasingly desperate and unhinged. The man who prided himself on being the best in the world, on being mentally sharper than everyone else, was being reduced to paranoia. He started showing up to the arena hours early, checking every corner, every shadow. He refused to trust anyone, including his own friends. When Seth Rollins tried to offer support, Punk pushed him away, convinced that everyone was a potential suspect. When Cody Rhodes extended a hand of alliance, Punk rejected it, believing it could be a setup. The psychological toll was evident. Dark circles under his eyes, a shorter temper, reckless aggression in his matches that bordered on self-destructive. His matches suffered too. How could they not? When you're constantly looking over your shoulder, when you can't focus on the opponent in front of you because you're worried about the one in the shadows, your performance deteriorates. Punk started losing matches he should have won easily. Not because he wasn't talented, not because he wasn't capable, but because his mind was elsewhere. In a match against Finn Balor, he was so distracted checking the entrance ramp that he walked right into a coup de grace for the loss. Against Damian Priest, he kept glancing at the rafters, convinced the attacker was up there, and got caught with a South of Heaven chokeslam. The frustration was palpable. You could see it eating him alive. The WWE universe was split. Half of us were angry at WWE for dragging this out so long without answers. We felt like we were being manipulated, like they were dangling a carrot in front of us with no intention of ever letting us catch it. The other half was so invested in the mystery that they couldn't look away. Every Monday Night Raw, the ratings spiked because people needed to know if this would be the night we finally got answers. Social media engagement was through the roof. The hashtag "Who Attacked Punk" trend every single Monday night without fail. Love it or hate it, WWE had us hooked. But then things escalated to a dangerous level. 3 weeks ago, the attacker didn't just jump Punk backstage. They assaulted him during a match. Punk was in the middle of a bout with Drew McIntyre, a match that was absolutely tearing the house down, when the lights went out mid-match. When they came back on, the masked attacker was in the ring, and they proceeded to hit Punk with the most devastating assault we'd seen yet. Chair shots. Steel steps. They threw him into the ring post. They hit him with what looked like a customized finisher that left Punk motionless in the center of the ring. Drew McIntyre was taken out too, collateral damage to ensure nobody could help. The attacker stood over Punk's body, tilted their head in that creepy, calculating way, and slowly walked up the ramp as medical personnel rushed to the ring. That attack put Punk out of action for 2 weeks. 2 weeks where we got no updates, no information, just speculation and worry. When he finally returned last week, he looked different. Not physically broken, but mentally transformed. The paranoia was gone, replaced by cold, calculated rage. He cut a promo that sent chills down everyone's spine. He said he was done being the victim. He was done being reactive. He announced that this Monday on Raw, he was going to force the mystery attacker to reveal themselves, and when they did, he was going to end them. Not beat them. End them. The intensity in his voice, the conviction in his eyes, made everyone believe that something major was about to happen. WWE built that episode of Raw around Punk's declaration. Every segment, every match, every backstage interview referenced it. The tension was suffocating. Adam Pearce tried to convince Punk to let security handle it, but Punk made it clear that if Pearce interfered, there would be consequences for everyone. Punk essentially took over Raw, demanding that the show not end until the attacker revealed themselves. He sat in the ring for segments at a time, microphone in hand, calling out the coward who'd been tormenting him. He insulted them, challenged their courage, questioned their legitimacy as a competitor. He said that if they didn't show themselves, he'd make sure everyone knew they were nothing but a pathetic excuse for a wrestler who could only operate in the shadows. The crowd was losing their minds. Chants of CM Punk echoed throughout the arena in waves that wouldn't stop. You could feel that something massive was about to happen. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. And then, after what felt like an eternity, after Punk had verbally eviscerated this mystery person for what seemed like hours, the lights went out one more time. But this time was different. This time, when the lights came back on, the attacker was standing on the entrance ramp. No sneak attack. No ambush. Just standing there, mask still on, staring directly at CM Punk. The arena fell into a deafening silence that somehow felt louder than any crowd reaction. Punk slowly stood up, dropped the microphone, and started walking toward the ramp. The attacker didn't move. They just stood there, waiting. And then, in a moment that felt like it lasted forever but happened in an instant, the attacker reached up and pulled off their mask. The reveal sent shockwaves through that building. The gasp from the crowd was visceral. People's jaws literally dropped. Social media immediately exploded. Because standing there, with a sadistic smile on their face, was someone nobody expected, someone whose presence changed everything we thought we knew about this storyline. It was Samoa Joe. And before you say you saw it coming, before you claim you predicted it, let me explain why this reveal was so much deeper than just the identity. Samoa Joe and CM Punk have history that goes back nearly 2 decades. They've been rivals, they've been friends, they've been tag team partners, and they've been bitter enemies. Their rivalry in Ring of Honor is legendary. Their matches were brutal, personal, and some of the best professional wrestling has ever seen. When Punk left for WWE originally and Joe went to TNA, their paths diverged. When they both ended up in WWE years later, they had occasional interactions but never reignited that intense rivalry from their independent days. Until now. But here's what makes this so brilliant, so perfectly executed, and so deeply personal. Samoa Joe's attack wasn't about revenge for something that happened recently. This wasn't about a current storyline dispute or a championship opportunity. No, Samoa Joe's motivation ran much deeper. As he stood on that ramp, he grabbed a microphone and began to speak. His voice was calm, measured, but dripping with venom. He explained that for years, he'd watched CM Punk receive all the accolades, all the praise, all the recognition for their time in the independent scene. He watched Punk become the voice of the voiceless, watched him main event pay-per-views, watched him hold the WWE Championship for over 400 days, and watched him be celebrated as the rebel who changed the industry. But according to Joe, none of that should have been Punk's. Joe claimed that he was always the better wrestler, the more legitimate fighter, the more dangerous competitor. He said that while Punk was good at talking, at manipulating crowds with his words, Joe was actually backing it up in the ring every single night. He brought up specific matches from their Ring of Honor days, moments where he felt he proved his superiority but Punk somehow got the glory. He talked about how when they both left the independent scene, Punk went to WWE and became a star while Joe spent years in TNA being underutilized and underappreciated. And when Joe finally made it to WWE, Punk was gone, off doing whatever he wanted while Joe fought through NXT and the main roster trying to build his legacy. Then Punk came back. Joe said that when CM Punk returned to WWE, walking back through that door after everything he'd said about the company, after all the bridges he'd burned, and was immediately treated like royalty, something inside Joe snapped. He watched Punk get standing ovations for simply showing up while Joe, who'd been there grinding, putting in the work, was relegated to occasional appearances in short-term storylines. The resentment built. The anger festered. And Joe decided that if WWE wasn't going to recognize him as the superior competitor, he'd prove it by systematically destroying the man everyone mistakenly believed was better than him. The attacks weren't random. They were strategic. Joe wanted to break Punk down, to show everyone that the tough guy persona, the rebellious attitude, the confidence that Punk projected was all an illusion. He wanted to expose Punk as vulnerable, as human, as someone who could be beaten not just physically but psychologically. Every attack was calculated to chip away at Punk's mental armor. The mind games, the cryptic messages, the paranoia-inducing stalking, it was all designed to make Punk question himself, to make him weak, to reduce him from the icon he believed himself to be to just another broken wrestler who couldn't handle the pressure. And you know what the most disturbing part was? Samoa Joe admitted he enjoyed it. He savored every moment of watching Punk deteriorate. He loved seeing the frustration in Punk's eyes, the desperation in his actions, the way Punk pushed away everyone who tried to help him. Joe said that watching CM Punk, the so-called best in the world, become a paranoid shell of himself was more satisfying than any championship victory he'd ever achieved. Because this wasn't about titles or opportunities. This was about proving once and for all who was truly the better man, and in Joe's mind, he'd already won that battle before they even had a formal match. CM Punk's reaction to this revelation was terrifying in its intensity. The man stood on that ramp, about 20 feet from Samoa Joe, and you could see every emotion flash across his face. Shock, recognition, understanding, anger, rage, and then something darker. Something that suggested Joe had miscalculated. Because while Joe thought he'd broken CM Punk, what he'd actually done was forge him into something more dangerous than he'd ever been. Punk didn't immediately charge at Joe. He didn't scream or yell. He simply smiled. A cold, calculated smile that suggested Joe had no idea what was coming. What happened next was absolute pandemonium. Punk slowly walked toward Joe, maintaining eye contact the entire time. Joe dropped the microphone and prepared for a fight. When they were face to face, nose to nose, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And then Punk struck first. Not with a punch, not with a kick, but with a headbutt that caught Joe completely off guard. The brawl that ensued was unlike anything we'd seen on Raw in years. These two men, with decades of history between them, unleashed hell on each other right there on the entrance ramp. Punches, kicks, they fought through the crowd. They fought backstage. They fought through catering. Security couldn't stop them. Other wrestlers tried to separate them and got knocked out for their efforts. Drew McIntyre tried to intervene and aid a GTS from Punk and a coquina clutch from Joe simultaneously. The fight spilled into the parking lot. They threw each other into cars. Punk hit Joe with a steel chair. Joe responded by suplexing Punk onto a car hood. The chaos was beautiful, brutal, and completely unscripted in how it felt. This wasn't a worked fight that looked choreographed. This looked like two men genuinely trying to hurt each other. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity of destruction, Adam Pearce and about 20 security guards managed to separate them. Both men were bloodied, exhausted, but still trying to get at each other. Pearce, looking absolutely frazzled, got on a microphone and announced that at the next pay-per-view, CM Punk and Samoa Joe would settle this once and for all in a match with no disqualifications, no countouts, and no interference. The winner would not only get revenge but would also be declared the #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. The stakes couldn't be higher. But here's what makes this entire situation so compelling, so absolutely gripping that you can't look away. This isn't just about CM Punk getting revenge on his mystery attacker. This is about two legends of professional wrestling, two men who helped define what independent wrestling could be, two competitors who've been orbiting each other for 20 years, finally getting the blow-off match that wrestling fans have been dreaming about since they were tearing the house down in Ring of Honor. This is personal in ways that most wrestling storylines can never achieve because the history is real, the animosity has roots in reality, and both men have legitimate reasons to want to prove they're better than the other. Think about what this match represents. For CM Punk, this is about vindication. This is about proving that despite months of attacks, despite being stalked and tormented, despite having his mental state pushed to the brink, he's still the best in the world. This is about showing Samoa Joe that all the sneak attacks, all the mind games, all the cowardly tactics don't change the fundamental truth that when they're face to face in a fair fight, Punk will always come out on top. But it's also deeply personal for Punk because Joe didn't just attack him physically. Joe attacked his legacy, questioned his accomplishments, and suggested that everything Punk achieved was somehow stolen valor that rightfully belonged to Joe. For Samoa Joe, this match is his opportunity to back up everything he said. Talk is cheap in professional wrestling. You can cut the most intense promo in the world, make all the claims you want about being better than someone, but until you prove it in the ring, it's just words. Joe has been saying for weeks now that he's the superior competitor, that he's always been better than Punk, that he systematically broke down the man everyone considers one of the best of all time. Now he has to prove it. And if he can't, if CM Punk beats him at the pay-per-view, then everything Joe said becomes hollow. All the attacks, all the psychological warfare, all the claims of superiority become nothing more than the desperate actions of a man who knew he couldn't beat Punk straight up. The build-up to this match is going to be insane. WWE has 3 weeks to promote this, and you better believe they're going to milk every drop of drama, history, and animosity between these two. We're going to get video packages showing their history in Ring of Honor. We're going to see interviews from people who wrestled both of them, asking who they think is truly better. We're going to get promos from both men that cut deeper than usual because they're drawing on real emotions and real history. This isn't going to be a typical wrestling feud with generic insults and formulaic segments. This is going to be raw, honest, and uncomfortable in the best possible way. And let's talk about the styles clash that's going to make this match incredible. CM Punk is a technical wrestler who can brawl when necessary. He's methodical, strategic, and knows how to work a crowd like few others can. His offense is varied, using submission holds, strike combinations, and his devastating GTS finisher to put opponents away. But what makes Punk special is his psychology. He tells a story in the ring, making you believe every near fall, every comeback, and every moment of desperation. Samoa Joe, on the other hand, is a destroyer. He's bigger, stronger, and his offense is based on overwhelming power and suffocating submissions. His coquina clutch is one of the most protected finishers in wrestling because when it's locked in, nobody escapes. Joe's style is aggressive, relentless, and designed to break his opponents physically. When these styles collide, especially with no disqualifications and no countouts, we're going to witness something special. Punk will have to use his intelligence and quickness to avoid Joe's power game. Joe will have to corner Punk, cut off the ring, and prevent him from using his speed advantage. Both men will likely use weapons, given the no disqualification stipulation. We might see tables, chairs, steel steps, and who knows what else come into play. But what's going to make this match transcendent is the emotion behind every move. Every strike will have 20 years of history behind it. Every near fall will feel earned. Every moment of drama will be amplified by the genuine animosity between these competitors. There's also the psychological warfare that's going to continue leading up to the match. Joe has been in Punk's head for months. He knows what buttons to push, what fears to exploit, what doubts to amplify. In the weeks leading to the pay-per-view, Joe is going to continue that mental assault. He'll bring up Punk's failures, his injuries, his age, anything he can use to make Punk doubt himself. And Punk, now knowing who his attacker is, will fire back with everything he's got. He'll remind Joe of every time Joe fell short, every opportunity he squandered, every moment where Joe was in someone else's shadow. This war of words is going to be must-see television. The question on everyone's mind is who's going to win. And honestly, WWE has booked themselves into a position where either outcome makes sense and has massive implications. If CM Punk wins, it's the ultimate revenge story. The man who was tormented, attacked, and psychologically broken overcomes his demon and proves that he truly is the best in the world. It validates everything Punk has said about himself, vindicates his return to WWE, and sets him up as the rightful #1 contender who earned his shot by defeating the man who tried to end his career. The crowd would erupt. The moment would be cathartic. And Punk would have his hand raised, having conquered not just an opponent but his own doubts and fears. But if Samoa Joe wins, the storytelling possibilities become even more interesting. It would mean that Joe was right all along. His attacks did break CM Punk. His psychological warfare was effective. He is the better competitor, and he proved it when it mattered most. A Joe victory would be devastating for Punk, both as a character and potentially in storyline terms. Where does Punk go from there? How does he recover from losing to the man who systematically destroyed him for months? Does he spiral into a darker version of himself? Does he question whether he still belongs in WWE? The character development opportunities from a Joe victory are fascinating and could lead to even more compelling television. Personally, and this is just my opinion, I think we're headed for a Punk victory, but not cleanly. I think this match is going to be so brutal, so violent, so emotionally draining that both men will be destroyed by the end of it. I think we're going to see interference, maybe from someone aligned with Joe that we don't know about yet, or perhaps someone from Punk's past coming to even the odds. I think this match ends with Punk hitting the GTS onto a pile of chairs, getting the 3 count, but both men being carried out on stretchers because they've given everything they have to settle this rivalry. And that's what makes this storyline so brilliant. WWE took a mystery angle that could have easily fallen flat or been disappointing and turned it into one of the most personal, emotionally charged feuds in recent memory. The reveal of Samoa Joe as the attacker wasn't just a shocking moment for shock value. It opened the door to a rivalry that has real depth, real history, and real stakes. When Punk and Joe step into that ring at the pay-per-view, we're not just watching a wrestling match. We're watching the culmination of 20 years of parallel careers, mutual respect mixed with competitive jealousy, and the answer to a question that's been asked since their Ring of Honor days: which one of them is truly better? The WWE Universe is completely invested in this. Social media has been absolutely on fire since the reveal. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's choosing sides. Team Punk versus Team Joe debates are happening everywhere. And that's exactly what WWE wants. They want us talking, arguing, speculating, and counting down the days until these two warriors finally settle their differences in the most brutal way possible. So to answer the question posed at the beginning of this video, yes, CM Punk finally knows who his mystery attacker is. Yes, the months of torment and psychological warfare have a face and a name, but getting revenge isn't going to be as simple as knowing who's responsible. Samoa Joe is one of the most dangerous competitors in professional wrestling history. He's proven he can get inside Punk's head. He's proven he can beat Punk down physically. And now he has to prove he can beat him in a straight fight with everything on the line. This is going to be an absolute war, and honestly, I cannot wait to see how it all plays out because this is professional wrestling at its absolute best.